Pastor Bob Joyce before checking out these videos, and a lot of people are saying how similar his voice is to that of Elvis Presley's.
For more than 4 decades, Priscilla Presley has been the quiet guardian of Elvis's legacy, shielding his memory from rumors and wild conspiracy theories. But when confronted with the Bob Joyce theory, something changed. She didn't dismiss it, nor confirm it. What she said instead was so subtle and charged with meaning that it left millions stunned and forced the world to reconsider what they thought they knew. Could Elvis Presley truly have wanted to disappear from the spotlight, seeking peace beyond the public eye? The Bob Joyce theory emerges. The Bob Joyce theory is one of the most fascinating and persistent mysteries tied to Elvis Presley's legacy. It centers around a quiet pastor from Arkansas named Bob Joyce, whose voice has sparked intrigue with its uncanny similarity to Elvis's famous tone. Millions of fans and audio experts have listened to side-by-side comparisons, noting the near-perfect overlap of vocal qualities that defy easy explanation. This isn't just about resemblance. It's about a voice so identical that it challenges the boundaries of coincidence or imitation. Bob Joyce, unlike impersonators or tribute singers, has never claimed to be Elvis. He lives a modest life, dedicated to preaching and singing gospel music, the same musical style that deeply influenced Elvis's early years. Visitors travel from across the country to hear him sing in his small church, many insisting that what they hear is something far greater than mimicry. For some, it's an overwhelming spiritual experience that feels inexplicably connected to Elvis's essence. This theory has been brewing for years, but it gained a new life among listeners who are not casual fans but lifelong devotees of Elvis's music. These are people who can distinguish minute vocal details from decades of recordings. Their conviction that the voice they hear weekly in that Arkansas church belongs, in some way, to Elvis Presley has kept this theory alive in the face of skepticism and dismissal. At its heart, the Bob Joyce theory challenges what we think we know about Elvis's death. The official account places Elvis's passing in 1977. Yet this voice suggests a different ending, or at least a continuation unseen by the public eye. The idea hints at a man who might have sought refuge from the overwhelming pressures that consumed him. But for now, that remains unproven, belonging more to the realm of speculation and hope. What makes this mystery even more compelling is that Bob Joyce has never exploited the resemblance. He does not perform in jumpsuits or rehearse Elvis songs for crowds. Instead, he quietly leads his congregation in gospel hymns, far from the glare of fame. This contrast raises the question, if this truly is Elvis, why choose such anonymity and simplicity? Audio analysts have even run complex spectral analyses, confirming not just similarities, but a rare vocal overlap that is difficult to attribute to anything but the same or nearly identical voice. Yet no definitive proof has ever emerged, leaving the matter suspended between belief and denial. This tension has fueled debates in forums, documentaries, and private conversations among fans around the world. The Bob Joyce theory asks us to reconsider what it means to know someone's voice, and by extension, their presence. It hints that identity can be more fluid, and that this particular voice carries a story of retreat, escape, or perhaps reinvention. But the question that lingers most is what Priscilla Presley thinks of all this, given her intimate knowledge of Elvis. The line between fact and hope blurs when someone so close to Elvis chooses nuance over denial, leaving millions wondering if there's more to the story than the history books reveal. Priscilla, protecting Elvis's legacy. Priscilla Presley is far more than just the woman who once shared a life with Elvis. She is the steward of his legacy. For over 40 years, she has managed Graceland and the estate, navigating the complex task of preserving an icon while protecting the man beneath the myth. Her role has been both a privilege and a burden, requiring a balance between honoring Elvis's memory and managing the commercial empire built around his image. Throughout the decades, Priscilla has faced countless rumors and conspiracy theories. She has seen the public's appetite for speculation grow louder and more imaginative, but she has maintained a dignified distance, never feeding into wild claims. Her silence has been purposeful, a shield against narratives that could distort or exploit the reality she knew intimately. Many expected Priscilla to dismiss the Bob Joyce theory outright, considering her responsibility to protect Elvis's name and legacy. After all, acknowledging any alternative to the official story risks opening doors to speculation that might weaken the carefully curated image of the king of rock and roll. Yet, when asked directly about this very theory, she chose a path few anticipated. Her decades-long experience has taught her that every word she utters will be scrutinized, twisted, and dissected by fans, media, and detractors alike. She understands the power of language and the importance of timing in responding to sensitive questions about Elvis's life and death. Remaining neutral or silent is often the safest course. But she knew that this question demanded something different. Priscilla's unique vantage point really comes from the fact she knew Elvis beyond that public persona. You know, the one people repeat. She saw his struggles with fame, his real longing for privacy, and that ongoing wanting to be seen as just a man, not some icon. That kind of insight is what shapes the way she hesitates, how she slows down, and the phrase she picks. It's never random, it feels measured. Her perspective doesn't get built from outside speculation, though. It's more from personal history, plus this emotional complexity that sits underneath everything. Even managing his estate, it isn't just paperwork or formalities, it's navigating the fan expectations too. A lot of them cling pretty fiercely to Elvis's memory, and sometimes they resist any storyline that pushes against what they already believe. Priscilla has to honor those feelings, but still not bend the truth. Not really. Not in the way she sees it. That tricky balance, it shows her commitment to both his humanity and the legacy he left behind. And because of the role she holds, she ends up with a rare voice in the conversation around Elvis. When she speaks, people listen, not only for answers, but for what sits under the answer. The subtext hidden between her words. Her reputation for discretion and respect kind of creates this atmosphere where ambiguity can be just as meaningful as clarity. It's like she allows meaning to linger. Still, despite all the massive pressures, Priscilla has carried the responsibility with dignity, as if she is a guardian of a story that is public myth and private grief. At the same time, her handling of the Bob Joyce theory shows it clearly, too. She balances the hopes of millions with realities she alone holds. This makes her response not just newsworthy, but profoundly significant in understanding the larger narrative of Elvis Presley's life and the questions still left unanswered. Public reactions to Elvis conspiracy theories. Elvis Presley's death has been one of the most fertile grounds for conspiracy theories in popular culture. From claims that he faked his death to reports of secret sightings worldwide, the narratives surrounding the king have never truly stopped evolving. Fans and skeptics alike have contributed to this folklore, sometimes blurring the line between hope and denial. Priscilla Presley has witnessed this phenomenon firsthand. For years, she chose to let many of these rumors pass without engagement, recognizing that responding would only amplify the noise. She understood that some questions could never be fully answered, and that indulging every claim could disrespect both Elvis's memory and those grieving his loss. Public reactions to the Bob Joyce theory, however, have been distinct. This theory struck a chord not only because of the startling vocal similarity, but because it presented a more believable and intimate scenario. Elvis finding refuge in a quiet, spiritual life far from fame's glare. This nuance added emotional weight and sparked renewed interest and debate across fan communities. Longtime Elvis followers, people who know his voice intimately and have studied his recordings extensively, have reported being shaken by what they hear in Bob Joyce's sermons and gospel songs. To them, it feels less like speculation and more like an unspoken truth. This perspective has drawn in both passionate believers and critical skeptics, fueling ongoing discussions. Meanwhile, many outside the fan community dismiss these theories as fantasies or publicity stunts. The divide between believers and non-believers reflects broader tensions about the nature of celebrity death, fandom, and the human need for closure. The internet and social media have made it easier than ever to spread and dissect such stories, adding layers of complexity. Priscilla's measured approach contrasts sharply with the often sensational public discourse. She has seen the hurt these theories can cause the family, as well as the comfort they sometimes provide fans longing to keep Elvis's spirit alive. Her silence was not indifference, but a protective measure, to shield both the truth she knew and the emotions swirling around his name. When she finally broke her customary silence on the Bob Joyce topic, the public was unprepared for the subtlety of her response. Rather than outright denial or confirmation, she offered a compassionate acknowledgement of the emotional currents that fuel the theory. This stance challenged many entrenched beliefs on both sides. Her words disrupted the usual narrative, intimating that understanding Elvis's choices and possible desire for peace matters more than reductive yes or no answers. This response has left fans and commentators alike wondering what it means for the legacy of the king. In these moments of uncertainty and reflection, new questions emerge, linking the past to the present and compelling us to revisit what we think we know about Elvis Presley and the man behind the legend. The moment. Priscilla addressed Bob Joyce. When Priscilla Presley finally addressed the Bob Joyce theory, the moment was charged with rare significance and deep restraint. Known for her careful silence on controversies surrounding Elvis, her decision to speak directly caught many by surprise. Instead of dismissing the theory outright or ridiculing it, she offered a response so measured and nuanced that it sent ripples through both believers and skeptics alike. Her words carried the weight of decades spent managing not just a legacy, but a deeply personal history. Priscilla did not simply say yes or no. She avoided the straightforward denial that most expected from the guardian of Elvis's estate. Instead, she spoke with a tenderness that reflected her understanding of why people want to believe this alternative story. This approach was not one of endorsement, but of empathy, acknowledging the emotional realities behind the theory. It was an acknowledgement few anticipated from someone so closely tied to Elvis's official history. In that moment, Priscilla revealed a side seldom glimpsed in public. A woman weary from 40 years of defending a story the world refuses to let end. Her voice held a blend of grief and compassion, showing a deep respect for the fans' devotion and their need for hope. She seemed to carry not only the responsibility for Elvis's image, but also the burden of unspoken truths only she might know. Priscilla's pause before answering was telling. It reflected the complexity of balancing public perception, personal pain, and the unrelenting myths that surround Elvis. She understands that every statement she makes will be dissected and sometimes distorted. Yet she spoke anyway, signaling that this topic deserved more than a dismissive brush-off. Her choice to engage, even delicately, shifted the conversation in a profound way. Her words made clear that the issue was less about Bob Joyce himself and more about Elvis, the man behind the myth. She spoke about what Elvis wanted, what he never received, and the possibility that the man the world worshipped might never have found peace in his public life. This subtle redirection turned the spotlight from conspiracy to humanity, asking fans to consider the deeper longing in Elvis's story. Many were struck by how candid Priscilla was about understanding why so many cling to the idea that Elvis might still be alive. She described the love people have for him as real and powerful, rooted not in foolishness, but in a profound need. This need to keep Elvis present, to hold on to him as something tangible and accessible, was a theme she addressed without judgment, something that resonated with listeners worldwide. This acknowledgement went further than anyone had seen before. Rather than closing the door on alternative beliefs, she left it slightly ajar, prompting endless speculation and debate. Her words felt almost like permission, an unspoken allowance for people to keep searching, wondering, and hoping. That she would embrace such ambiguity was a surprising and significant departure from her usual guarded tone. Priscilla's response became a pivotal moment because it came from someone who knew Elvis more intimately than almost anyone else alive. She connected with the fans' emotions without severing ties to the official narrative. By balancing respect for the truth with compassion for belief, she humanized a story often reduced to sensationalism. Priscilla's nuanced response set a new tone, one that recognized the ache behind the question without settling it, blending empathy with the enduring enigma that is Elvis. This openness invites us to explore not just what happened, but what Elvis truly needed. The emotional depth behind her words. The emotional depth in Priscilla Presley's words revealed a vulnerability rarely seen in public discussions about Elvis's death and legacy. She acknowledged the powerful connection fans maintain with Elvis is not born from denial or delusion, but from genuine love. This love, she explained, transcends logic and is driven by a deep, heartfelt need to keep Elvis close, to believe he never truly left them. Her empathy spoke to a shared human experience of loss and longing. Priscilla spoke to the idea that the desire to keep Elvis alive is an emotional response to a grief that has never fully healed. It's not simply a refusal to accept death, it's a way of preserving hope and comfort. She recognized these feelings without condescension, honoring the fans' experiences as a kind of collective yearning rooted in admiration and pain. By doing so, she bridged the often wide gap between skeptic and believer. Her words also reflected a profound understanding of the isolation Elvis felt in life. She highlighted how suffocated he was by fame, trapped in an existence where he had everything except the freedom to be an ordinary man. This insight reframed the conversation from one of conspiracy to one of empathy, suggesting that beneath the public spectacle was a person desperate for peace and anonymity. Priscilla's carefully chosen language hints at a compassion not just for the fans, but for Elvis himself. She acknowledged the heartbreaking reality that the man who became a legend never found the chance to shed his public persona and live in quietude. This admission adds a layer of poignancy to the theory that Elvis might have sought escape by stepping away from the spotlight entirely. Her acknowledgement that she would understand if Elvis had chosen to disappear quietly changes the narrative completely. It's not a confirmation, but it's also not a denial. It suggests a personal reconciliation with a possibility that many still find difficult to accept. This middle ground is unsettling precisely because it challenges the black and white perspectives often held by the public. The emotions beneath her words resonate because they address something fundamental, an unmet need for peace and redemption. She portrayed Elvis not just as a cultural icon, but as a human being weighed down by circumstances beyond his control. This makes the idea of a voluntary disappearance not just plausible in a human sense, but deeply tragic. Priscilla's response also opens space for compassion toward those who believe in the Bob Joyce theory. Rather than dismissing or mocking them, she recognized their longing as legitimate and shared a kind of weary compassion for the communities invested in the mystery. This approach softens the harsh divisions often seen in conspiracy debates. Her empathy extends to acknowledging the burden she carries herself. For decades, she has been the one repeatedly asked to defend or speak for a man gone too soon. Her words reflect the emotional toll of being caught between preserving a legacy and confronting unending speculation. The weight she carries lends gravity to everything she says. Finally, Priscilla's layered response invites us to question what peace means for someone like Elvis Presley, a man who gave so much of himself to the world. It reminds us that some wounds linger long after the public spotlight fades, and that sometimes silence or ambiguity carries more truth than clarity. The delicate balance between what is spoken and what is left unsaid in Priscilla's response invites a deeper understanding of Elvis, not just as a figure of fame, but as a man who struggled to find rest. The evidence and significance of Bob Joyce's voice. At the heart of the Bob Joyce theory lies one undeniable fact that has baffled many: the voice. Audio comparisons between recordings of Elvis Presley and Bob Joyce reveal a voice so eerily similar it has challenged experts and fans alike. This is not a matter of mere resemblance or imitation. It's the kind of vocal match that defies normal explanation. Specialists have conducted detailed spectral analyses that show overlap in vocal qualities, a phenomenon rarely seen even among identical twins. Bob Joyce's singing is effortless and unforced. He is not performing or trying to sound like Elvis. Every Sunday, in his small church in Arkansas, he preaches and sings gospel with authentic conviction. The voice that fills the space carries every signature inflection, vibrato, and tonal quality that made Elvis's voice unmistakable, but without any theatrical flair. This genuine simplicity surprises many who expect someone with such a voice to seek the limelight. Unlike typical impersonators, Joyce has never capitalized on his voice's resemblance. He does not sell merchandise, attend fan conventions, or promote himself on television. There are no jumpsuits, no stage costumes, no elaborate performances. His life is modest and devoted to his congregation, a stark contrast to the public persona of Elvis Presley at the height of his fame. The lack of financial or fame-seeking motives only adds to the mystery and credibility of those who believe in the theory. For many, Joyce's reluctance to embrace stardom supports the notion that if he is Elvis, he chose a life of quiet faith over public adulation. His authenticity is reinforced by the fact that he has never pushed back against speculation, responding with gentle denial or silence when asked directly about the connection. Bob Joyce's congregation often includes lifelong Elvis fans who say they experience something inexplicably profound in his voice. They describe a spiritual resonance rather than a mere musical impression. For these listeners, hearing Bob Joyce sing is less about the man on stage and more about feeling the continued presence of Elvis's spirit and artistry. Experts in audio technology have noted that the vocal signals from Joyce and Elvis essentially overlap, meaning that the pattern and texture of their voices are nearly indistinguishable. This is a fascinating finding given that slight differences in human voices are usually detectable even in well-trained impersonators. It raises profound questions about the origins and nature of this voice. However, the extraordinary nature of this evidence has not led to definitive proofs or legal claims, leaving the theory suspended between compelling possibility and unanswered doubt. This ambiguous space challenges listeners to reconsider how voice and identity intersect, especially in the case of an icon whose voice was as famous as his image. Such a powerful and mysterious voice sets the stage for deeper questions about what Elvis wanted and what Priscilla Presley hinted at regarding his desire to escape fame. Implications of Elvis seeking escape. Priscilla Presley's subtle acknowledgement of the possibility that Elvis might have wanted to escape the spotlight opens a window into a more personal and haunting narrative. She spoke of Elvis's deep and abiding desire for privacy, emphasizing how trapped he felt in a life where fame offered everything but the one thing he craved most: being left alone. This longing for ordinariness deeply colors the way we perceive the man behind the legend. Many accounts detail how Elvis struggled with the crushing pressures of stardom, constant attention, relentless expectations, and a life where every room was filled with demands. Priscilla's words reflect an intimate understanding of this reality, painting a portrait of a man suffocated by the machinery that built him up and never let him rest. This paints his later years in a tragic light, where silence and anonymity became the ultimate freedom. Her refusal to confirm or deny Elvis's supposed disappearance leaves a potent space where possibility lingers. This space resonates with millions who have wondered, if the king found a way to reclaim his life beyond the public eye. Priscilla's empathy suggests a personal reconciliation with this idea, even if it challenges official accounts or public belief. The idea of Elvis returning to a quieter life singing gospel in a humble church, much like Bob Joyce's, fits poignantly into this narrative. It clashes with the glamour and spectacle most associate with the man, but aligns with the faith and musical roots he never abandoned. This implies that, for Elvis, peace might have meant shedding not just fame, but his entire public persona. This possibility reframes the Bob Joyce theory from being merely a conspiracy to a deeply human story about a man seeking redemption and refuge. Priscilla's words hint that the desire to disappear was not an act of avoidance, but a search for spiritual and personal restoration, an escape rather than an evasion. Such framing transforms the theory into a meditation on fame's toll. Popular culture often immortalizes celebrities in fixed images, but her reflections remind us that the reality is more complex. The man who gave his entire life to the world may have longed for release from the burdens his fame imposed. This understanding prompts a reconsideration of celebrity and the cost of living in a glass cage without reprieve. Priscilla's nuanced stance also acknowledges the pain beneath the theory that Elvis did not get what he most wanted. Her compassion for a man trapped by his own legend deepens our empathy for how difficult it must have been to carry such a load. It also honors the yearning of fans who project their hopes onto the possibility of his escape. By leaving the door open, even just a crack, she disrupts the certainty of Elvis's story as commonly told and invites reflection on the complexity of grief, identity, and public life. This subtlety challenges us to embrace ambiguity and recognize that some truths about Elvis may remain forever just beyond reach. This delicate balance between belief, evidence, and empathy deepens the mystery surrounding Elvis Presley while illuminating the profound human desires behind the myths. It asks not just what happened, but what might have been, and what peace really means for a man both loved and trapped by the world's gaze. The questions Priscilla raises led naturally to a reflection on Elvis's enduring legacy and the mysteries that still surround the king's final chapter. Legacy, myth, and what remains unanswered. Priscilla Presley occupies a unique place in the story of Elvis Presley, one of the last living connections to the man before he became a legend. She bridges the gap between the myth constructed by fame and the private individual she loved. This position gives her insights that no fan, biographer, or historian can fully access, making her words about the Bob Joyce theory especially significant. Her carefully measured response adds a new layer to a narrative often reduced to speculation and sensationalism. Elvis's legacy is both vast and complicated. He was a global icon whose influence reshaped music and culture. But behind the dazzling stage presence was a man burdened by expectations that seemed impossible to fulfill. Priscilla's reflections reveal how deeply that pressure affected him, fueling rumors, grief, and an ongoing desire to see him as more than just a public figure. The legend is immortal, but the man was vulnerable. The theory that Elvis might have sought a quieter existence resonates because it speaks to a universal wish, the desire to reclaim control over one's life, away from relentless scrutiny. Priscilla's empathy for this notion demonstrates a profound understanding of the contradictions within Elvis's experience, the conflict between his public role and private self. This emotional truth keeps the theory alive, regardless of proofs or denials. At the same time, her insight exposes the almost unbearable weight of living within a myth. Fans and family alike have had to navigate the tension between honoring Elvis's memory and confronting the endless questions and doubts that surround his death. Priscilla has borne this burden with resilience, shielding the integrity of the legacy while acknowledging the complexity beneath it. She also makes it clear that the Bob Joyce theory is not just about a man with a remarkable voice. It's about the idea of peace, the hope for escape, and the human need to believe in a gentler ending. This shifts the conversation from conspiracy theory to emotional reality, underscoring why it has persisted while others have faded away. The theory becomes a vessel for collective grief and longing. Yet, Priscilla does not offer closure or final confirmation. Instead, she invites contemplation of what we truly want from Elvis's story. Is it proof of survival, or is it the possibility of peace, redemption, and freedom that we project onto him? This invitation is vital, as it transforms the myth from a static relic into a living, breathing question that challenges us all. The legacy of Elvis Presley remains a powerful cultural force because it is enmeshed with these unanswered questions. Even decades after his death, the fascination endures, fueled by voices like Priscilla's that refuse to reduce his story to neat conclusions. Her nuanced perspective encourages us to respect the mystery and the man behind the spectacle. This legacy, layered with myth and complexity, reminds us that some stories are more about what they represent than what we can prove. Elvis became a symbol of something larger: hope, struggle, love, and loss that transcends his physical life. Priscilla's words hold space for that truth, allowing the story to evolve rather than be confined. In the end, the question Priscilla leaves us with is less about fact and more about feeling. Whether Elvis ever found the peace he sought, whether he truly escaped the cage of fame, and what that means for those who continue to carry his memory forward. The answer remains open, elusive, and deeply human. Priscilla Presley's words have opened a new chapter in the enduring Elvis story, one marked by empathy, mystery, and profound longing. Whether the Bob Joyce theory is true or not, her response reminds us that some questions transcend certainty. If you found this exploration compelling, be sure to like and subscribe to join us for more untold stories and insights about the king and his legacy.